Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everybody. How are ya? Hope you're doing great on this Tuesday. You know what? We got on Friday a Hero's Breakfast. That's right, our good friends at Warrior's Journey, our good friends over there at Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, Delta Roofing, and of course, Scramblers, providing free breakfast for veterans. This Fridays we broadcast live from 6 to 9 so it shall be a busy one, I'm sure. But we'd love for you to come out and join us, veteran or otherwise, of course. Non-veterans are more than welcome to come out and have breakfast or lunch. They are at Scramblers, open for lunch, in fact. Little tidbit of information, should you not know it. And if you need a place in the evening to hold some sort of meeting, they can do a catered menu for you. Bill Cox, the owner, he joined us for a bit on Friday to talk about that. A lot of times you need a meeting place, but everywhere it's very expensive, or you have to do at least $1,000 down, and it goes towards the food, but maybe you only have 20 people, and so you're not necessarily needing $1,000 worth of food. Scramblers is probably a great place for you, so you can reach out to them if you have any needs. I think they close at 2 or 3 normally, so it'd be four evenings. What's that?
They close at 2.
Okay, 2:00. Yeah, is it 3 on Saturday? For some reason in my mind there was one day that it was a little later.
I don't think so.
Probably, I am incorrect on that. All right. There are a few things from yesterday we didn't get to, so we are going to cover some of that today. But one of the big news items from yesterday was the releasing of the letter of the most recent attempted assassin of Donald Trump. This letter in which he offers a bounty on Trump's head, offering $150 and expressing that he's doing this for the world, which is in line with the rhetoric that we have been hearing regarding Donald Trump, that he's a danger to our country, to democracy, to the world, that the world must be saved from Donald Trump. And it's very clear that this individual bought into all of that media and Democrat narrative. And he seems proud of what he did. I mean, this was clearly he believed that he was delivering what he was called to deliver upon, and that is ridding the world of Donald Trump. The real head scratching that comes along with this is why release this letter. We have been told under this administration, with the Department of Justice, FBI, in some instances, that releasing such information is dangerous. This is the reason that the government has gone to great lengths in order to prevent the writings of the transgender shooter at that Christian school in Tennessee. They've kept a clampdown on that. And even when some of it leaked out, the government was very angry that this was very dangerous, that putting that information out there might inspire people. Well, if that's your position, and listen, I think that there are arguments to be made on both sides. I think that there are arguments to be made, well, maybe on 3 sides. One, that you just always release that stuff. In the name of transparency, you, as government, you do not put it upon yourself to determine whether the American people can handle it, or whether somebody might take it as inspiration. That you just put it all out there, whatever the writings are, whatever the ramblings are, whatever the justifications are, and you do that. Then there's the argument that you never do it. That putting it out there could inspire others, not the content itself, but the fact that it gets put out there. If there is some psychotic individual who feels that they have the answers to everything, but nobody will listen to them, they write their letters to the editor, but the editor will not print it. They try to get on talk radio, but they can't get on the air. They've tried to write, they've got all these ramblings that they've tried to get published, and no one will publish it. And they see, well, gosh, if you shoot up a school or assassinate a president or attempt to assassinate a president, then the government puts it out there. And so I understand that there's an argument to be made that you never release that stuff in order to prevent that from occurring. And then there's the third way: you play it by ear, case by case, in which government decides, takes it out of the hands of the people altogether, and then we only are recipients of the messaging that the government deems that we are either responsible enough to receive, or if you have a corrupt government, if the letter, the manifesto, the writings are something that helps further their cause, then we're at their mercy. The problem here is that this same administration has argued that releasing writings, specifically in the case of the transgender shooter, that encourages violence, that might inspire individuals. Well, when you take that position and then you release a letter from a would-be assassin offering a bounty on the head of Trump, and presenting itself, the motivation, as saving the world, because he said, "This is to the world, I have failed you." So it's clear in his mind that he believed that he was Superman, that he was going to deliver and save us all from what the Democrats and the media tell us Donald Trump is, this horrible dictator, and that's who this guy was. And so why on earth? I mean, I think that we can all imagine that he's not the only crazy person out there who believes this rhetoric. So the question that's being asked increasingly is, why would the Biden administration release a letter when their position has in the past been, you don't release these type letters because they could inspire copycats? But when it comes to somebody trying to assassinate Trump and doing it in the name of saving the world, that is what you release? There needs to be at the very least, an explanation for this. Don Jr. weighing in. Bill Barr, clearly no fan of Donald Trump, weighing in on this, plus others. I suspect today there will be more discussion on this, and at least there should be, because this is a contradiction in behavior from this administration. And as usual, it's one that if one were to speculate what sort of motivation could be behind this, it's not a very positive one. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have patchy fog before 8 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 74.
The story that you just heard regarding voting and absentee and so forth. Shane Schuller will be joining us, Greene County Clerk, to talk about some of those important dates, what they mean, how it is that you can vote early or when you can early, absentee versus early, and so forth. Now, he, of course, covers Greene County, but much of the basic dates and rules are going to apply wherever you are. The difference will be, of course, where it is that your ballots will go. And what time is he coming on?
I believe 7:30, and also today we will have sample ballots up. So
Okay.
give me until the end of the day, and you should be able to find those at ksgf.com.
All right. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. Utilize that specifically if you do have any questions, voter related specifically, that you want us to ask Shane when he is in here after the 7:30 break at the bottom of the hour. And we'll make sure to ask those questions. 447 KSGF. Don Jr. calls out Justice Department for releasing Ralph's letter putting a bounty on his dad. Ask in the wake of the release of the claimed missive, quote, WTF, why is Kamala's DOJ publicizing Ryan Wesley Ralph's putting a bounty on my dad's head? A witness reportedly received the letter in a box months ago from Ralph, but he or she did not open the box until after the failed assassination attempt on September 14th. One of the letters in the box, addressed to the world, confirmed that the recent actions of Ralph were, in fact, an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Further in the letter, Ralph offered $150,000 to whomever can, quote, finish the job. The letter reads, this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I am so sorry I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It is up to you now to finish the job. I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job. Everyone across the globe, from the younger to the oldest, knows that Trump is unfit to be anything, much less a U.S. president. U.S. presidents must, at a bare minimum, embody the moral fabric that is American, be kind, caring, selfless, and always stand for humanity. One of the questions that is being asked, that is a common sense question, is If he wrote this in advance, how did he know that he failed? This letter references that he failed. Now, this is what I don't know. It seems as if there's some missing information here. Based on, unless there's some additional information that I've not come across, this witness, according to reports, received the letter in a box months ago, but did not open it. Now, why did they not open it? I mean, there's got to be, this was either mailed to this individual or hand-delivered to this individual by Routh or somebody on Routh's behalf. I mean, those seem to me to be the three ways in which the recipient of this box was received. The witness did not open it. Why was that? Was the witness told, do not open this? Furthermore, was the witness told, do not open this unless something, something, something. Now, whatever that could be. Do not open this until you'll just know. You'll just know. Or do not open this unless I'm, I don't, there's just unanswered questions here. So it seems to me that perhaps there was some sort of instruction provided along with that box to not open it unless something specific occurs. Now, did that something specific occur? We don't know because we don't know the circumstances of it. Now, according to the reports, the witness opened it after the reports were on the news. This witness who has a box sees on the news, oh, he was arrested for trying to kill Trump. And then opened it. Well, was that what this witness was waiting for, or was there something else, or were they just told, don't open this, we just don't know the answer to that question, and it's one that doesn't seem to be necessarily addressed in any of the stories. Obviously, I haven't read every single story that has been written about this, but it seems to me like a very obvious question, something that if I'm writing a news story, I'm going to address that. I'm going to address just the fact that we do not know who this person is, why they did not open the box at the time, and what prompted them to decide to open it after they saw the news report. Why did they not open it until then? Very obvious question, but of course we don't seemingly have the answer to that question at this time. Former Attorney General William Barr said he's dumbfounded that the Justice Department released the chilling letter penned by Ryan Wesley Routh on Monday, calling the decision rash and serving no purpose other than to risk inciting further violence. Now, some are going to argue that that is not the intent. Okay. Then what is it? I don't know the answer to that question. As usual, this government, because of a combination of caginess with information and dishonesty and political motivation, leaves Americans trying to fill in the blanks. Leaves us trying to figure out, okay, what are they doing here? Why did they do this? We unfortunately, because of the behavior of this Department of Justice and the FBI and other divisions within our government, they have managed to prove to the American people that they cannot be trusted and that they are politically motivated. So we no longer live in a time in which you could have certain information not provided, but the American people feeling pretty assured that, well, if they're not telling us, it's probably for the best. If they're not telling us, they must have good reasons because there are hardworking Americans that are doing everything they can to deliver truth and justice and to keep us all secure. The vast majority of Americans realize that that is not what's going on in this country any longer. It's just a matter of how long it hasn't been going on. So when the Department of Justice releases a letter like this, after declaring letters like this being released are a danger and could incite violence and could inspire other people to repeat the actions. This is the justification they've used for keeping under wraps the writings, the letters, the entries, diary or otherwise, of the trans shooter. When they then do a 180-degree turn and release a letter that declares that the whole purpose of this was to save the world from Donald Trump, almost providing this sort of virtuous presentation of, well, this is why it was done. I think it's incumbent upon Americans to ask, what's the deal here? What you need to explain to us why you felt it was beneficial to release this letter. I think that we deserve an answer to that, as does former President Donald Trump. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. I can't believe they would let that letter out, especially when they wanted everyone to believe that the assassins were MAGA people. Yeah, this is specifically what MSNBC was reporting, Joy Reid, that both assassins were Trump supporters. These networks just straight up lie. There's sloppiness, there is dishonesty that can be written off as negligence and ignorance, but they're just straight up lies. Straight up lies. MSNBC, straight up lies. To report as fact, as Joy Reid, who has her own show on MSNBC, that the two would-be assassins were Trump supporters, which, I mean, it defies logic anyhow. I guess John Wilkes Booth was a big lover of Lincoln. Lee Harvey Oswald, boy, he sure loved himself some JFK. Sirhan loved Bobby Kennedy. You can go down the list. I guess that's what we're supposed to believe now, that they love him so much they just can't stand anyone else having him, so they just take him out. This is the level of dishonesty we have in the media today. One of the other questions, which is, again, an obvious question, is, well, who is going to pay the $150,000? How would they get the money? On the surface, this is easy to dismiss as, well, the guy's a little bit crazy. I, though, again, am curious about the box. the box that the witness, that the letter was in, this box. Why did the witness not, the witness received the box in some form months ago. Why did they not open it? Were they told not to open it? If they were told not to open it, were they told open it under these circumstances? And were these circumstances met? Or did they just think, holy crap, wait a minute, that's so and so, that I know him. He gave me the box. I'm going to open this box now. And wouldn't you be a little afraid there was a bomb in it or something? I would. I don't know that I would have opened that box. And maybe the person didn't. Well, no, the person did. It sounds like the news reports say the person opened the box. I would not have opened that box unless I knew what was going on. And I'm not suggesting that the person who opened the box knew what was going on. I'm just telling you my approach. I would be like, this guy just tried to kill Trump. Is this part of his plan to further the chaos? Is there a bomb in this box? You know, did he send boxes to other people as well? Give them to other people. Is he wanting to create some sort of carnage in the name of something? You know, I would have immediately called the police. Like, I got this box here from this guy. I ain't opening it. But apparently, according to the information we have, this person decided to open the box. The $150,000. Now, let's say, okay, so you can have two different things going on here. One, the guy's just crazy, because let's be honest, $150,000 is not really that much money in the context of how much money exists. I mean, if somebody offered me $150,000, I wouldn't sneeze at it. I mean, not to kill a person, but, you know, $150,000. You know what I'm saying? To kill the president or former president and who could very well likely be the next president and throw our elections into total upheaval. You know, if you're talking about, and how many people would do it for $150,000? I suppose some might. It just seems like a weirdly low number for something that is as dramatic and drastic as attempting to assassinate Trump. Okay, so then let's say you do it. Well, where do you get the money? How do you know where to go? Is that information that also was in the box? Were there instructions in there? You know, or once again, he could just be enough off his rocker that he was thinking, well, they won't think this through. I'll just put $150,000 on it with no intent to actually pay it. Now, if that's the case, then why wouldn't you put $150 million? Or did he have enough wherewithal to recognize, well, people would think that's unrealistic. I have a certain, you know, means in which I live. And once, if I do get killed or I fail and this letter gets out, people are going to go, well, clearly he's not got $5 million, but $150,000, I believe. But again, how do you get it? So there's just so many aspects to this that are, I say, yet to be determined, though once again, we're talking about the current Department of Justice, in which I don't believe any American, rightfully so, expects to get straight answers. So who knows if we'll ever find out the answers to these questions. The good news is, I'm running late. I'll get to you in a second, traffic. There was a poll conducted by the Senate Opportunity Fund, and it found that 57% of voters somewhat or strongly agree that labeling Trump a threat to democracy is irresponsible rhetoric, which leads to political violence like assassination attempts. So as much as the Democrats and the media want to claim that calling Trump a dictator and that he's going to destroy life as we know it, that's not what causes this violence. It's him, because he's Hitler. That's what causes the violence. The vast majority of Americans disagree, and they do believe that the rhetoric we're hearing from the Democrat Party, the left, and the media is what leads to assassination attempts against Donald Trump.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog before 8 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 74.
Someone texted in, my wife would have opened that box the second they left.
I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing too.
Now, the other possibility is that he had, we don't know if this is a friend, acquaintance. He may have just said, hey, I don't have room. I mean, is this a shoebox? Is this a giant box? We're talking about the box that the would-be assassin left with what's being called a witness that had this letter in it. And the witness, according to the reports, was given this box months ago, opened it after they saw the assassination attempt. So we're like, okay, why did they not open the box? Did he give instructions not to open the box unless this particular something occurred? If this occurs, then you can open the box. Or maybe he just, said, hey, I'm, moving and I don't have a place to store it. Do you mind keeping this for me? And, had it all taped up, and they're like, yeah, sure, and didn't really think anything of it until after they saw that he had been arrested for trying to kill Trump in the name of saving democracy, and then they're like, oh, maybe I should open this. So it could be something as benign as that, but again, I would not have opened it. I wouldn't. Who knows what was in there? You see some, could have these little dead hamsters that he had crafted into little dolls and or having some sort of Oval Office meeting or something inside the box. You don't know with people. I would not have opened that box. I would have called police right away and been like, I got a box here for you. I wanted to share with you transcripts that have been released that lay out in more detail what Donald Trump has said from the beginning. And that was that he was trying to get the National Guard in play on January 6th. And what has come into focus, with much of this, is what I have argued it appeared to be for some time. And that is Donald Trump was the only person who was trying to secure the Capitol prior to January 6th. The upside-down nature of all of this is the fact that Democrats have portrayed him as the one reason it all occurred, yet he is the one person who actually tried to prevent anything like that from possibly happening. John Solomon, writing or reporting in Just the News, then President Donald Trump gave clear instructions to Pentagon brass days before the January 6th riots to, quote, do whatever it takes, end quote, to keep the U.S. Capitol safe, including deploying National Guard or even active duty troops. But top brass officials did not comply because of political concerns, according to transcripts of bombshell interviews conducted by the Defense Department's chief watchdog that shine new light on government dysfunction ahead of the historic tragedy. Now, I'm going to read through this. And what is important to note here is that this isn't, according to Donald Trump. This is according to numerous people, including some people who hate Donald Trump, like Milley. General Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, confirmed to the Pentagon Inspector General 3 years ago that during the January 3rd, 2021 Oval Office meeting, 3 days before January 6th, Trump pre-approved the use of National Guard or even active duty troops to keep peace in the nation's capital on the day Congress was to certify the results of the 2020 election. Milley's interviews were among several key to transcripts obtained by House Administration Oversight Subcommittee Chairman Barry Loudermilk, Republican from Georgia, and shared with Just the News. Quote, now, mind you, Milley hated Donald Trump, hated him, still does. Quote, the president said, hey, look at this. It's going to be a large number of protesters come in here on the 6th and make sure that you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it's a safe place, Milley told the Inspector General in one of 2 interviews he did in the spring of 21 during a probe of the Pentagon's response to January 6th. Milley said then Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller, himself a former general, assured Trump that there was an adequate safety plan for Pentagon assistance to Washington, D.C. Miller responds by saying, hey, we've got a plan, we've got it covered, and that's about it, Milley recalled. So Trump was telling the Pentagon folks, listen, if you have to use active duty to make sure 3 days from now that protests do not get out of control, do it. And he was told, don't worry, we have it handled. You know, very dismissive of Trump. He doesn't know what he's talking about here. Just pat him on the head. We've got this covered. Milley confirmed a second time during the interview that Trump was clear in his wishes. Quote, it was just what I described with you. Trump said, hey, I don't care if you use the Guard or soldiers, active duty soldiers, do whatever you have to do. Just make sure it's safe, end quote. Now, let me tell you, this starts to make me very angry. When I think back to the way that the Democrats have portrayed Trump as doing nothing, they have portrayed Trump as encouraging things to get out of control, that they have portrayed him as, well, he didn't say anything for 2.5 hours, when 3 days ahead of time, he was the one person that was saying, do whatever you have to do to make this safe. And they are trying to put him in prison. Understand this. See, here's the thing. And this is how just embarrassingly third world country banana republic the Democrats have made this country. It would be one thing if Donald Trump said, let's go to the Capitol, and the Pentagon days in advance said maybe we should dispatch the National Guard or active duty troops to make sure things were safe. And Donald Trump said, no, absolutely not. Now, some people may agree or disagree in a scenario like that as to whether or not Trump was fully responsible for things, but at least you could have a debate or a discussion. That's not what happened here. The people who have been accusing Donald Trump of being responsible for this are the people who are responsible for this. And they are trying, this isn't just political, they're trying to put him in prison for something that they did. Something that he tried to prevent from happening. The transcripts of Milley's April 8th, 2021 and April 16th, 2021 interviews confirm reporting by Just the News 2 years ago that Trump was the one who wanted troops to keep the capital city safe. Other transcripts gathered by Loudermilk during the subcommittee's ongoing probe of January 6 security fails show civilian leadership at the Pentagon admitted openly that they would not comply with Trump's request, with some saying that they didn't like the optics of armed soldiers or guardsmen roaming the Capitol with weapons during what was supposed to be a peaceful transition of power. Miller told the Inspector General during his March 2021 interview, there was absolutely no way I was putting U.S. military forces at the Capitol, period. But these pieces of trash, these are people who are military. I think they should be in prison. Without question, they should be in prison. Here they were told by Trump, the commander-in-chief, use whatever means necessary, National Guard, active troops, whatever, to make sure the Capitol is safe. And you have acknowledging, in this case, the Defense Secretary Christopher Miller, I wasn't going to do what Trump told me to do. There was no way I was going to do that. And then subsequently, because of that insubordination, Donald Trump is the one that they're trying to put in prison. I'm going to take a break, share more of this this report regarding the latest transcript release coming up. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Bombshell transcripts. Trump urged the use of troops, not just National Guard, but active duty, in order to protect the Capitol, telling the Pentagon to do whatever they had to do. And this was 3 days before January 6th. Told General Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told acting Defense Secretary at the time, Christopher Miller, do whatever you have to do. Make sure that the Capitol is safe. To which, according to Miller, he himself told the Inspector General there was absolutely no way I was going to put U.S. military forces at the Capitol, period. Wasn't going to do it. Just totally, almost braggadocious about the fact that he was insubordinate. Miller said officials instead used a interagency process to devise an alternative plan that would put some D.C. National Guard troops on the ground in the nation's capital to direct traffic, but not to guard the Capitol. A plan that was suggested by District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser. Quote, the operational plan was this. Let's take the D.C. National Guard, keep them away from the Capitol. Let's put the request. It wasn't my request. Bowser and her Metropolitan Police Department were like, let's put D.C. National Guard on traffic control points and at the metro station to free up credentialed law enforcement officers that can go out and arrest people. Miller admitted that there was a political calculus to his decision not to deploy troops near or at the Capitol ahead of the time of preventative security. So what you have here, and again, this is Miller's own acknowledgement in testimony, that as the then defense secretary, for political reasons, he defied the orders of President Donald Trump to protect the Capitol with troops or National Guard. For political reasons. He explained, quote, I hate to use the word optics because it's been used so prejudicially and negatively. It wasn't the optics. It was like there would have been huge political consequences that because that's what I got paid to do, is I had to factor in the politics of this, and that was my concern, is this situation does not warrant, at this time, U.S. military forces. Former District of Columbia Metropolitan Police Chief Robert Conti confirmed in his interview that Pentagon officials, specifically Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy, resisted his department's initial request around New Year's Eve for troops in advance of January 6th, especially if they were to be deployed anywhere near the Capitol. Quote, I received a call directly from the Secretary of Army, Ryan McCarthy, and at that point, he had reviewed our request for the support of D.C. National Guard, and what he relayed to me, this phone call, was not what I initially thought that he would be saying. He did not initially say, yes, you get the National Guard responding, and they're going to handle this traffic and crowd management that you've asked for, and that they're going to be responsible for responding to handling it. That was not what was stated. What was stated to me was that he was not inclined to fulfill the request with guardsmen simply because the optics of it was bad. He said that he did not want to have boots on the ground on this. He did not want to have boots on the ground anywhere near the Capitol, is what was stated. Loudermouth noted he's deeply concerned that Pentagon officials substituted their own personal politics for the president's instruction. I hope he's being diplomatic. January 6th did not occur because Donald Trump had concerns about election integrity. January 6th occurred because people within the Pentagon disobeyed orders from the commander-in-chief by their own acknowledgement. This isn't a he said, they said. This is a everybody's on the same page here. I can understand, particularly in hindsight, that it's easy to look at this as a horrific judgment call at best. But if I'm going to be open-minded about it, prior to January 6th, I think reasonable people could have said, yeah, I don't know about the optics of that. I don't know as a nation where we really are proud of our ability to transfer power without issues. Having military in that, I just don't know about that. I think that we can handle this utilizing law enforcement. Now, bad call, but I think a reasonable person could have said that. The problem I have is that the subsequent fallout from that decision is turned into Donald Trump caused this, when Donald Trump was, once again, the only person who was making the right call. I mean, Donald Trump, and I know people who hate Donald Trump hate to hear this, but he has this knack for being whenever he is the lone voice on an issue, he's the one who turns out to be right. And this is yet another one of those instances where he was the one person, and I'm sure in their minds, we don't have to listen to him. He's on his way out in 3 days. This buffoon, he's not going to give me orders. He's out of here in 3 days. January 6th, Biden's going to be president of the United States. I don't have to listen to this piece of work. Screw him. I'm not going to obey his orders. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm sure that appears to be their attitude. And because of that insubordination, we got January 6th. They are the ones who should potentially be facing some sort of trial and charges. There's more to this. We do have to get a break. Again, we're going to have coming up Shane Scholler after 7:30 to give you just the latest on when and where in terms of voting, because, it's no longer just election day anymore. So if you do have any questions of him specifically, text those into the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447-KSGF. Kansas Territory Brewing Company. Now the season's over for Springfield Cardinals, and of course that was the one place that was first introducing the Bradford Lights, the Pineapple Life coach from Kansas Territory Brewing Company, but should be hitting shelves soon as they make their way from Washington, Kansas to Springfield, Missouri. You may have seen billboards up, heard ads elsewhere, but you can learn more at KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com. So transcripts have been released that show during the investigation into what happened on January 6th. This was an investigation done by the Department of Defense. This was their sort of internal, because of their involvement to certain capacities. This wasn't some political show put on by Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi. And in the interviews, you had Milley, who hated Donald Trump. This Milley is the guy that on a phone told his counterpart in China that he would give them a heads up if Trump was going to make any sort of move regarding China militarily. Which, how you don't go to prison for that, I don't know. But this is how much he hates Trump. He confirmed during the investigation that Trump not only ordered troops to National Guard to 3 days before January 6th, on January 3rd, told him if he had to use active troops, do whatever it takes to make it safe. Then Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Miller, who also hated Trump, acknowledged in the investigation there was absolutely, quote, no way I was putting U.S. military forces at the Capitol, period. And I'm telling you, they saw in their minds Trump is gone in a few days. We don't have to do what the hell the commander-in-chief tells us to do. We'll do whatever we want. Finally, this piece of crap is gone in their minds. Finally, we're going to get the establishment back in charge, Joe Biden. Things are going to go back to normal. So in these final days, we do not have to listen to Donald Trump tell us what to do. I guarantee you that was their attitude. And it backfired spectacularly. And instead of taking responsibility for their decision, they stand by and allow Trump to falsely be painted as someone who didn't want to do anything. The D.C. Homeland Security Coordinator, Christopher Rodriguez, told the Pentagon Inspector General that the same concerns about political optics that nixed troops at the Capitol ahead of time may have factored into the delay on the afternoon of January 6, noting a top Army official used the word optics during a call as emergency resources were being urgently sought to quell the violence at the Capitol. Rodriguez recalled, quote, I do believe it was one of the generals that was on the line from Secretary of Army Staff that I referred to. Loudermilk wrote on X earlier this month, the D.C. National Guard was significantly delayed from deploying to the U.S. Capitol on J6 because senior DOD leaders had optics concerns. The transcripts also show there remain some factual disputes among the key players. For instance, ex-Defense Secretary Miller told Congress that Trump gave a specific number of troops he wanted to see made available for security ahead of January 6th. Quote, the president commented that they were going to need 10,000 troops. I interpreted it as a bit of presidential banter or President Trump banter that you're all familiar with, and in no way, shape, or form did I interpret it that was an order of direction. So, in other words, again, the dismissiveness, and we don't have to listen to this guy. Whatever, he's just being Trump. Milley, the former Joint Chiefs chairman, said he didn't recall that number ever being uttered in meetings with Trump. Quote, there was no discussion of 10,000 troops, the retired four-star general said. The transcript also provides hints that top Pentagon officials personally disliked the 45th president. For instance, former acting Secretary Miller at one point compared Trump to Fidel Castro, which is sort of weird because the left loved Fidel Castro. It's amazing the different worlds that we live in. There is the world of reality and what really happened, and then there is the world that has been created falsely by the Democrats and the media. When you read the transcripts from the investigation, the Inspector General here from the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, and their interviews of the people who were involved, who hated Trump, when it comes to where the problems arose and why wasn't this occurring or that occurring, and when they're talking about what really happened, none of it is, well, because Trump told us not to. It was, they were all in defiance of Donald Trump, ordering them to do whatever it took in order to make sure the Capitol was safe. And what is just so disappointing and angry is that, can you imagine the difference in this country if Americans knew the truth, if we did not have a media that was actually a campaign wing of the Kamala Harris campaign? Because in reality, this is actually sort of kind of good for the country. Now, not from a military perspective, because what you have here on full display is a military that is openly defying their commander-in-chief. This, yet again, is what you hear about happening in banana republics, in which you have the military just subverting whatever it is that the president of the country is doing, and they start running things on their own. That's what was occurring. They were, when it came to what was occurring at the Capitol, when it came to what was going to occur at the Capitol, they completely just ignored and defied the commander-in-chief. They defied their orders. So now we're going to do what we want to do. And we got January 6th because of it. I can't even imagine being Trump. Of course, you are hit from all directions, so I suppose it would be too difficult to focus on one thing long enough to get as angry as I would about it. And he strikes me as the type that you just get up and you keep fighting. But to be the one person that was actually trying to do everything to make sure that January 6th was peaceful, and the only reason it didn't happen is because you, the people who were under you, were insubordinate, and that the political party that fueled that insubordination, that was part of that, then turns around and claims that you were the one who did, and then they're trying to put you in prison for it, and they use it as one of their campaign themes. It is absolutely shameful. It's vile. It's disgusting. It is the worst of the worst. And the fact that these military individuals that were insubordinate, opening up what would become January 6th, making it possible, the fact that they're not in prison is beyond me. Military prisons. Particularly given this administration's contention that this was worse than 9/11. That it was worse than 9/11. And not a single one of these persons were held accountable. Instead, the one person who tried to stop it is the one they're targeting. That's how vile and immoral and evil these people are. Yet they managed to stir up so much hate against Donald Trump, he's the one that is constantly having to dodge bullets. Springfield's Talk 104.1, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have patchy fog before 8 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 74.
Regarding the released transcripts from the anti-Trump military brass and this was an investigation done a couple of years ago about January 6th, and they all admit in behind closed door testimony that Trump said not only National Guard but active duty, do whatever you have to do in order to make sure that there's a peaceful transition of power, that Trump was the one person, and they just defied him. Just didn't do it. Now, they claimed it was for political reasons because the optics politically they did not think looked good. One of you had texted in that we've seen this before, referencing the Reichstag fire, and this was not long after Hitler assumed power, and then there was a fire at the Reichstag building, which was where German parliament was housed, and it was blamed on political opposition and used as an excuse to round up political opposition, to clamp down on civil liberties. I think there may have been a number of things at play here. I do believe, without question, because of their own acknowledgement during criminal trials against some of the January 6ers and what we have seen the FBI do in the past, particularly when it came to setting up the alleged kidnapping attempt of Governor Whitmer, that the FBI, they had assets on the ground there on the Capitol. I mean, they've acknowledged this. The only thing that they don't know is how many they had. And when you scour over videos of the crowd that day, individuals that, by all appearances, are working for the government, you see them whispering in people's ears before the people start going through barricades, like encouraging individuals. Now, the FBI claims, well, we were just there to observe. Oh, really? You observed? That's like saying, well, we were just there to observe September 11th. So we watched the hijackers get on the plane, just to watch it happen. Well, you don't stop it? That doesn't make sense. Why would you just observe the single greatest attack on our democracy since the Civil War? I firmly believe that they were there instigating things. Did they expect it to get to the point that it did? Don't know the answer to that. But everything points to the fact that they were there instigating things. They were there encouraging people to misbehave. When it comes to Milley and Miller, in particular, in their acknowledgement that they defied orders from Trump to dispatch National Guard or active duty troops in order to make sure that there was a peaceful transition of power, 3 days, January 3rd, 3 days before January 6th, Trump made that order and they defied it. Was that part of the plan? Was that something that was coordinated deliberately to make sure that there was no protection, so that when the FBI instigated people to get violent and to attack police and to break windows, there would not be any military presence there? Or perhaps even worried that a military presence would be enough to prevent it from happening to begin with. They were like, no, we're not going to mess with the military. I don't know. I'm inclined, I don't dismiss the possibility of it. I'm inclined to believe that these are just arrogant SOBs who hated Trump. And because Trump told him to do it and he was on his way out, they were like, screw you. We're not going to tell us what to do with the military. I think in their minds, they just could not stand the idea that this guy that they considered to be some sort of buffoon, Miller himself compared him to Castro, Trump, that he was telling them what to do with troops. He was telling them what to do with National Guard. Who the hell do you think you are? You're on your way out. So I don't know, though I cannot dismiss the possibility based off of everything that we know factually. I can't dismiss the possibility that it was coordinated in order to facilitate greater damage on January 6th. But I think that in all likelihood, their component, their play in all of making January 6th possible was more just about hating Trump and just defying him. Because they hated him, and he wasn't going to tell them what to do. Regardless of the reasons, the fact that this same government that defied then the commander-in-chief is the government trying to put him in prison for what occurred because they defied him. Now, with that in mind, 741 intel chiefs, including Hunter laptop liars, endorse Harris. Hundreds of national security, intelligence, and military experts, like Miller and Milley, people like that, including multiple signatories of the infamous 2020 letter falsely claiming the laptop story was Russian disinformation, are endorsing Kamala Harris for president. So yet again, Donald Trump gets the endorsement from everyday people, blue-collar workers, average Americans, who just simply want to live their lives and not have the government, creating conditions that make it more difficult to live their lives. Kamala Harris has the deep state people, many of which were responsible for running disinformation operations during the last election, and rich celebrities like Oprah Winfrey and Taylor Swift, and, pick just the richest celebrities in the world, and, of course, they're going to be supporters of Kamala Harris. I mean, it is truly the great divide. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We have known Emily all her life, so we were confident she was the right realtor for us. She worked quickly to get our listing posted in a timely manner since we were already under contract to buy another property. She was always available to show the property, meet contractors, stage an open house, answer all the questions we had. Our house went under contract quickly. Thanks to her expertise, selling real estate is not just a job, it is also her passion. You know, one of the benefits of having her is the connections that she has made. And when you are trying to sell your home, oftentimes there are unexpected requirements. Someone loves the home. They're like, yes, we want to buy it. The inspector comes in. Oh, you got a little termite damage here. Or, hey, there's some water damage over there. Or, uh-oh, what about this over here? And you don't really know who to call. I mean, maybe you know one or a couple, but you don't know. This is something Emily deals with every day. So she is extremely familiar with all of these industries. And so she can, and some folks have even said she just did it for us, set up the appointment. We didn't even have to worry about it. So if you want to not be left out, just wandering, trying to figure out, overwhelmed with your job, your work, you have things going on. Now you have to try to arrange for all of this stuff to get done. If you don't want to be overwhelmed with that, then I definitely recommend, like so many others do, for your home selling needs or your home buying needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Someone had texted in Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. So let me get this straight. Putin, China, other bad actors, and 700 plus intelligence people want the same person for president. One of the things we're going to talk about coming up here, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Zelensky in Pennsylvania campaigning for Kamala Harris. I mean, that's exactly what's going on. Pennsylvania, an important state. Zelensky on your dime, taxpayer dime, flown to Pennsylvania in order to demonstrate how many wonderful jobs are created because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are continuing to give him any and everything that he wants in order to fight this war. This is an administration, you think about this in context, that filed indictments against some random Russians because they bought Facebook ads. noting that what election interference that we do not in this country stand for any foreign actors interfering in our elections. Yet they use your tax dollars to fly Zelensky to a swing state to talk about how important it is that these jobs, all these wonderful jobs that are created in order to help fund the war in Ukraine. This guy's livelihood depends on Biden and Harris getting reelected. I mean, there are so many levels of that are wrong. I wonder who prompted that visit. Something we'll never find out, I'm sure. Streaming live, KSGF.com. If you miss any of the show, of course, we have the on-demand podcast section at KSGF.com. And also Spotify, iTunes. You can find us there. And a reminder, coming up this Friday, we have a Heroes Breakfast. If you're a veteran, you're going to get free breakfast. That, thanks to Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and Warrior's Journey. Incredible, incredible folks there. And Scramblers. Got to give a big thank you to them as well. That'll be free breakfast for veterans this Friday from 6 to 9 at Scramblers as we broadcast live.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog before 8 a.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 74.
I was talking about Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and got a text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I'm doing an inspection right now, or inspection recheck right now for Emily Johnson clients. She is so professional and detail-oriented. Look at that.
She's awesome.
And, of course, when it comes to your home loan needs for those home purchases, I want a great homeloan.com. Other incredible people. And, they work in coordination with one another whenever it is something that's applicable. And that is so helpful as well. So before you even begin looking for homes, you want to do that home loan process, if anything, to know what it is you can afford. There's a number of things that you don't want to happen. And one of those things is you get online and you do a mortgage calculator, and so you think, oh, well, we can afford a $400,000 home. And then you go and you find it, you love it, and you're in love with it. And then you go and you find out, well, yeah, you can't afford it, but those monthly mortgage payments are going to wipe you out. You're not going to have any budget for anything else. You don't want to find yourself in that situation. So do that part first, and that all is set up to be as streamlined as possible, and it begins at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Shane Schuller joins us this morning. I turned my own microphone off there and then turned Sarah's off so she didn't interrupt us. Didn't want to be bothered by her over there. How are you?
Hey, doing great, man. How are you?
I am doing just fine. So things
Good.
are ramping up, getting busy.
Yes,
Now,
that's right.
if we can, just in case they're listening, I would like to start off just with some different questions people texted in
Sure.
for you.
All
And
right.
then we can kind of get to the overview. Let's see. Nick, quick question. I'm 31 years old. First time in my life I felt the need to vote. I registered but didn't get a voter registration card. Can I still show up at the poll and vote?
Yes, and feel free to call in the office at 417-868-4060. We'll want to make sure that you get that card. But if not, all you need is your driver's license, for example, to check in to vote. And so we have, unfortunately, seen some slow times with mail service, and so that could be part of the challenge, because I've heard from a number of people that are hearing that maybe things aren't coming as quickly as they anticipate. And I think actually some members of Congress just wrote a letter up in the Kansas City area because of the slow mail service.
Yes, that's very concerning,
Yes,
particularly when it comes to ballots.
that's right.
I tend to take, of course, I always have my ID with me anyhow, but I keep my voter card on me, and it seems as if anyhow, don't they, the barcode on the back of your ID, they scan that or something?
That's right.
Okay.
So if we have your driver's license number, that will give us access to the barcode on the back, and that way we can pull up your name when you check in to vote.
Another question. Do we have the option to vote early in Missouri? If so, let's see. Should we? Which way will allow our vote to count? I'm still afraid of Dominion voting machines. So there's a lot in there.
So, we have no excuse absentee voting starting October 22nd. So it's not vote early because, for the first 4 weeks, you have to give a reason like you're out of town or you're sick, for example, or religious belief. The final 2 weeks, you can vote in person. You're going to vote just like you do when you go to regular polling location. You're going to check in to vote, show your ID. You're going to get your ballot. You're going to vote it, and you're going to put it into the tabulation equipment. In terms of the equipment, no one ever trusts the equipment because it could be coded wrong. For example, we've already tested the absentee voting equipment to make sure it's tabulating correctly. We have a test deck that's hand counted, then compared to what's printed. And then just so they know, we don't trust those results after the election. We actually go through and do a post-test where we're going to, again, do the same test we did before. But then we're going to do a randomized hand count in terms of no less than 5% of the precincts are going to be hand counted in terms of a federal race or statewide race, legislative race, whether it's federal or for the state General Assembly. We're going to do a judiciary race. We're going to do issue race. We're going to do one for the county. And then, for example, back in 2020, we had a race for the 135th, less than 1/2 of a 1% difference between the top two candidates. I had the option to go through and do a hand count. We did that before we certified. So just let them know, anyone that's concerned, come and watch those. We actually publish when we do those hand counts. So we welcome the public because we want to be transparent. We want to let them know that we take seriously before we certify that election that it's accurate.
Let's see. I want to know excuse. Early vote in Berry County. What's the process? I guess you pretty much just answered that. Of course, Berry County is going to be a different location.
Right. It's going to be there at your courthouse, most likely in Berry County. Joyce does a great job down there. And so just, again, for the first 4 weeks, you're going to have an excuse in order to be able to vote absentee. The final 2 weeks starting the 22nd, you do not.
So whether it's absentee, which means you have an excuse, or no excuse, is it a requirement that you physically bring it in, or come in to do it?
You mean the request form?
Yeah. Like, what is that? The reason I ask because we hear so much, it gets confusing because different states have different rules. So we
That's
hear a lot
right.
about mail-in,
Yes.
or mail-in ballots and so forth. And so I guess just more specific. And I know you've touched on it here, but so people aren't confused about what that process is like.
So in terms of, if you want to vote absentee, you can still do it in person, or you can go online. We've got a form at vote.greencountymail.gov. You can fill that out. You can sign it, you can email it to us, or you can mail it in. You have those options to be able to take care of that.
Now, is that the request to vote, or is that the actual voting?
It's the request to vote
Got it.
absentee, and that's when we're going to mail you
Got it.
the ballot. And so for the first 4 weeks up until October 23rd, you can request an absentee ballot be mailed to you. After the 23rd, at that point, the only option you have is to come vote in person.
Now, I know some states do not require that the ballot be sent to the same address that you're registered at. Some, I know this was a problem when I was working for several years in Wisconsin, where thousands would all be sent to the same address. What are the requirements in Missouri?
Well, for example, if you're out of town, clearly we're not going to send it to your home address. That's going to be sent to the address. But we're going to check the signature. We do that when we get absentee request forms. We make sure the signature matches what we have on file. And if not, then we're going to have that signature updated before we can actually mail that ballot to that individual.
What happens if I come to vote on Election Day and I'm told, oh, wait, you already requested an absentee ballot?
Well, if they requested one but not vote one, I assume you're saying that this person did not request one. Is that
yeah? Let's say that I did.
Okay,
and
perfect,
then I'm like,
perfect.
well, I never got it.
Right, absolutely. And so we've got two options. If you did get it, we request you bring in that ballot. We're going to spoil that because of chain of custody purposes in terms of the ballots issued to the polling location that day. We'll issue a new one. If not, we have an affidavit. The person signs that says, I have not voted in this election. This is the first time voting. They will sign that affidavit under penalty of law. If they're not telling the truth, then it'll be up to the prosecutor if they want to prosecute that particular case. But there is a process there for individuals if that does happen.
Okay. Someone texted in asking, how do you verify that out-of-state college students are only voting once?
Well, that's is a challenge in terms of we don't necessarily trade information back and forth between states. There was a system years ago called cross-check where you could check with different states. That is no longer there. We were part of the Electronic Registration Information Center, ERIC, which Secretary Ashcroft chose to withdraw from. You may remember that last year. You could, through that particular program, be able to check to see if someone had voted in another state. And actually in St. Charles, they had a voter who'd voted in St. Charles and Florida both. They were able to discover that, and then they turned that information over to the authorities.
So there is currently no uniform way to go about doing that, is that correct?
But I will tell you this, the FBI does check on that, or to say the FBI, the authorities do check on that. I believe it's the FBI that does that, and they are very serious if someone is voting in more than one state. They will follow up and investigate that, and at that point you've committed a federal crime, and so it's not very good for you if you're in that situation.
I'm trying to think of any other questions. Are there other common questions or even oddball questions?
Well, I would tell people study this ballot. If you're just regular ballot, you're going to have no less than 6 questions, 6 amendments, 1 proposition for statewide issues. If you're a city of Springfield voter, you have a question there. There's more than 50 questions. That means, when I say questions, candidates on the ballot. So there's a lot. It's back and front. It's 17 inches front and back, essentially. So be prepared, because if you're not, you're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes potentially trying to vote that ballot.
Yeah, it could be helpful to know ahead of time. And then,
very much so.
Sarah, you said by the end of the show or the end of the day, all the sample ballots will be up?
I have got all of them but 8 right now.
Okay.
So I've emailed the county clerks, and hopefully I will get those by the end of the day. I do have a question for you.
And I can vouch that she emailed me.
I did, yeah. And you were the very first one that I got, so congratulations. So actually I had a question for you.
Yes.
Our weekend producer, Katie, she is going to be voting in our elections for the very first time. She just became a citizen. So she was
almost a year ago.
I think I met her last time I was here.
Yeah. Well, she was really excited because she brought her voter card in, and then she immediately asked me, she goes, now what if your address on your ID doesn't match where you live now? Is there going to be any complications with that?
Now, on the voter ID card or on her driver's license?
I think on her driver's license.
The driver's license address does not have to match. However, if she has moved, she does need to update that before she votes, because we want to make sure she gets the right ballot issued.
Is there a deadline for that?
No, you can actually do that on the day of the election.
Okay.
If you've lived in another county, like someone in Christian County moves to Greene County, one of the changes they made in the election integrity bill a couple of years ago that I was part of was if you're a registered voter there, we can actually on the day of the election get your registration updated, but you have to do it at the courthouse to be able to vote. So preferably do it beforehand. It used to be if you moved from another county,
Right.
you basically had to do the 4 weeks or you were out.
Did she move in a different county, or is she?
No, she's still in Greene County, but
So-
she moved to a different apartment.
So
Okay.
that's much easier. Just it's always easier to do it beforehand, though.
Okay.
Talking with Shane Scholler. I'm trying to think again offhand any other questions. Trying to think of things that I think about or others. Oh, somebody did wonder, talking about Dominion voting systems.
Yeah.
Are there better systems that are available that we just don't use for some reason?
Well, the technology that we use for voting is the same technology we took standardized tests as kids. So you have the ovals, you have the bars on the side, if you recall. That's the same technology that we're using today. And so now we do a digital scan now versus used to be OptiScan, so we keep a digital image of that ballot. But essentially, I came into this as county clerk saying, I'm not out there thinking everyone's trying to cheat the election, but you always have to go through and do your due diligence in terms of what I mentioned, the hand count. And so it's regardless of Dominion, we use election system software. There can be coding error, potentially can be hacked. That's a lot harder. We're decentralized. One of the things a lot of voters don't realize is that we are decentralized, which is actually a strength, meaning every county is literally creating a ballot for its voters based upon the address where they live. That happens in every county across the state. That happens across the United States. And so if someone is going to be hacking into the system software, they're literally going to have to be going to each county, into each literally address almost practically to try to hack into that. And that's not easily done. If you go back and look at what they've tried to penetrate, it's the voter registration systems. And you know why? Because they're centralized. So if you're going to do something to cause havoc, you're going to take the path of least resistance. And so if you go back to 2016, it's always the voter registration data that's warehoused in each state. That's what they've penetrated, and that's where we have to be very vigilant. Along with the machines.
And I could be wrong, but whenever that, and I remember that occurring, it seemed to me it wasn't necessarily so much about tinkering with votes or elections, but just getting information about people. Their
Well,
private
in
info.
Durham County, North Carolina that year, a lot of people don't know this. Voters went in to vote, and everything was different than what actually it was supposed to be.
Okay.
People came in, kind of your point, I didn't request a ballot. Well, you've already voted.
Got it.
Okay. You've moved, etc.
So it wasn't a matter of changing votes or anything. It was just creating chaos.
And imagine that on election day. If you
Oh,
have
yeah,
chaos at every polling location, it's going to get hot quick. So that's one of the issues. We need to be focused on the machines, but we also need to be focused. And Secretary Ashcroft has done a great job in terms of making sure we protect the voter registration data too.
When I lived, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that it is public information when you have voted, not how you voted, obviously, but this is information that is accessed by campaigns to sort of target the people who vote all the time versus those that don't ever vote and so forth. When I was working up in Wisconsin, it must have been the Secretary of State's website. You could go in and it was very intuitive, user-friendly, enter your name, and there was some additional info, and it just popped up for you. You are listed as having voted in all of the, and so a lot of times people would do that to, just to check, make sure no one voted in their name or requested a ballot. How is it that people? I know I don't think it's that easy in Missouri to do that, but what is that process?
They can always check through your local election authority's office. So if you want
Just
to
have
know
call.
absolutely, and we can provide that information for you. Another thing to mention to voters is we've had a rumor that started again this year that came out in 2020. That if you see an election judge, meaning a poll worker, mark your ballot, request a new one, that ballot may no longer be valid. We actually initial every ballot with both judges as part of chain of custody.
Okay.
So when you see them marking them out, they're initially in that so that we know after the election night, for example, there's more ballots than there are voters that checked in today. We're going to go look at those initials to verify.
All right.
So that's something I want the listeners
that's good
to know.
That is good to
Absolutely,
know.
because that's out in the web and it's through social media, and it's just a false rumor.
Okay, well, and it's being done for reasons of security. That makes sense. 'Cause
Correct.
then if you have ballots and they don't have those, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions you have, Sarah?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah. Okay. And so some of these, again, is early voting the same as absentee? No, we mentioned that.
Correct,
Right.
because we're excuse based, and so Some states essentially early voting is the moment they start voting, you can start voting that day, just like you would at a normal polling location. We're different in that regard.
All right. If people have any other questions,
They can call us at 417-868-4060 or send us a question at countyclerk@greencountymo.gov or go to vote.greencountymo.gov. We've got a lot of information there for voters. We even have the Secretary of State's office. You can put in your address, your information. For you personally, it'll pull up your ballot, so you can have that. We all have all the sample ballots as well they can look at. So there's a lot there for the listeners.
and then do we have that audio up yet, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things you're talking about, the particularly some of the different initiative petition or all of these different things that can be very, very confusing. And so I know that there was a presentation given Tom Arts, Darren Chappell, where they broke down and discussed all the different amendments. And so that was at an event, but Sarah actually recorded that audio. So I mentioned that when people look at the sample ballots, they think this is confusing. I don't know what it means. Where can they find the descriptions and breakdowns of that stuff?
So we have an elections section on our website. It's pretty easy to find whenever you go to ksgf.com. We've got like a little drop-down menu over on the right-hand side. Click on elections, and then you'll immediately see a podcast section. I have it, I think it's labeled what's on the ballot, and then I have it labeled by each amendment.
Perfect.
And so they're about 10 minutes in length. I'll also link them on the sample ballots, and
Awesome.
I believe we're also going to air that audio probably the Saturday before the election.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll
Perfect.
have it all kinds of different places for you.
All right, excellent. Shane Scholler, as always, it is a great pleasure to have you in the studio, sir.
Always good to be here.
All right,
Appreciate
thanks for
it.
swinging by
Thanks,
and
Nick.
give us heads up on anything that we need to make sure people are aware of.
You bet.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, ksgf.com. We are on YouTube. You can watch the show there if you'd like to. That is sponsored by Springfield Wraps, designer of the KSGF studio. You usually wave at the camera when I say that, I noticed.
My camera's still over there where Shane was
Oh.
sitting. Over there. It was.
Okay.
I know.
You didn't have the ring light on.
So now you'll have to wave at the camera for me. Or
Well.
okay, there you go.
I feel like I need-
Jeez, slapper.
Zelensky flown into key swing state at taxpayer expense after attacking Trump advance. This is a campaign stop. I mean, think about how just brazenly unethical this is from so many different fronts. This is a guy who is completely and wholly reliant on taxpayer dollars from the United States of America to continue to flow. And it is clear, understandably, that there's two different approaches here in how to deal with the Ukraine-Russian situation. The current approach is just give Zelensky whatever money he needs, whatever weapons he just give it to him. Because that's the only way that he's going to beat Russia. that if that isn't done, if he isn't supplied what he needs in terms of finance, and by the way, the money isn't just for the war. We're paying for their government. We're paying for the pensions of their politicians. We're essentially not only paying for our government, we're paying for all their entire country, their government. So it's not. I think there's this misconception that we're paying for bullets and that's about it. That's not the case. Trump's approach is let's figure out how to end this thing because what we're doing now is not ending it. And Trump is his approach is when you have a certain goal in mind. If what you're doing isn't getting you towards that goal, then figure out something else. And the goal is for this to end. And Trump looks at what's being done and says, this isn't ending it, so let's try something else. Now, the problem for Zelensky is that although he says he has some sort of peace plan, I think he's concerned that he's not going to have those free checks. And I think he's probably also concerned that even if there is some sort of stalemate or a stop in the fighting, that if Trump is president, that you and I as taxpayers will not continue to fund his government. And I think he fully feels confident that Kamala Harris will force us to do that. Now, we want to talk about this some more coming up, but we are running a little bit long. We've got a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. You got RV needs, lucky you. You got Wilder RV. Whether it's the purchase of a brand new RV, you got questions about what RV life is like, or you need any of the routine maintenance, unexpected maintenance done. Whatever it may be, they can take care of you. I love their site because it's got, it's just a great site. It's easy to navigate, and the pricing is transparent. What you see is what you get. They don't get you there and then all of a sudden start adding things. In fact, when you make a purchase, you get like $250 shopping spree there in their accessory department. So it's kind of the opposite of what you may be accustomed to. All of your RV needs, Clinton, Missouri, just a short drive north of Springfield on 13. You can also find them at wilderrv.com, also ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Dear Evan Hansen at Juanita K. You can register to win a pair of tickets to see the beloved show, and you register for the contest at ksgf.com. The performance will be October 8th through the 10th. If you're wanting to get yourself some tickets, but again, you can get yourself registered and maybe win a pair of them for free. That is the upcoming performance of Dear Evan Hansen. I guess we don't know if... Do we know what night the tickets are good for? I guess we should find that out, shouldn't we?
It doesn't say on your.
Not on my. Let's see. When you register, the show. Nope, it does not say. That information is not provided to me. So, rare miss from the promotions department there. Yeah, and he's on vacation, isn't he? Okay. All right then. Well. I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to read to you from this Daily Caller story. Zelensky flown into key swing state at taxpayer expense after attacking Trump and Vance. And let's be adults here. This is for campaign purposes. This is to try and help Kamala Harris get elected president of the United States. And you can understand why Zelensky would be more than willing to do so, because that's the money. That's where the money is. He is concerned that Donald Trump will cut off that siphon, or at least limit it to something less than what he's getting now. So Daily Caller writing that Ukrainian President Zelensky flew into a key U.S. swing state this week on a taxpayer-funded aircraft after publicly criticizing former President Donald Trump and Republican Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Zelensky touched down in Scranton, Pennsylvania on Sunday in a U.S. Air Force C-17A aircraft and toured a local munitions factory that has been producing armaments for Ukraine amid the country's ongoing war against Russia. During his visit, Zelensky met with high-level Democratic Pennsylvania officials, such as Governor Josh Shapiro, Senator Bob Casey, and Representative Matt Cartwright, and expressed his gratitude for their support. Prior to the trip to the U.S., Zelensky spoke to The New Yorker, claimed Trump doesn't, quote, really know how to stop the war, as opposed to what's going on now. As opposed to the people who are calling the shots as we speak. How long has this been going on? Zelensky said, during my visit to the Scranton Army ammunitions plant, where components for artillery and mortar shells are produced, including 155-millimeter shells for Ukraine, I emphasized the dedication of the workers, which is truly inspiring. They are helping Ukraine stand strong in our fight. Trump makes political statements in his election campaign. He says he wants the war to stop. Well, we do too. My feeling is that Trump doesn't really know how to stop the war, even if he might think that he knows how, he told The New Yorker in the interview published Sunday, noting that he was appreciative that Trump had expressed his support. Quote, with the war, oftentimes, the deeper you look at it, the less you understand. I've seen many leaders who were convinced they knew how to end it tomorrow, and as they waded deeper into it, they realized it's not that simple. So what is occurring here, this is the campaign message from the Harris campaign being delivered through Zelensky, that Trump, he doesn't really know it. I mean, yeah, Trump says he can, but yeah, he can't do it. Others have looked at this. No one really knows how to end this war, and so you shouldn't believe him. They recognize that the idea of this thing wrapping up is an idea that many Americans take to. They like the idea of that. They like the idea that we may no longer financially be on the hook for this ongoing war that doesn't appear to have any end in sight. And so what do you do in order to counter that message if you are the Harris campaign? You have Zelensky on the taxpayer dime fly over here, do a campaign stop in swing state of Pennsylvania, and portray Trump as not really knowing what he... In other words, Trump... There's no point in the context of, like, if you want this thing to end, voting for Trump's not going to do that. Zelensky was even more critical of Vance to The New Yorker, referring to him as too radical. Too radical. Zelensky's a guy who canceled elections and has put journalists in jail. Now, some may argue that radical times require radical solutions. But for somebody who cancels elections and throws journalists in jail to call J.D. Vance radical, that's interesting. In an interview with the Sean Ryan Show in September, Vance recently proposed a peace deal where Russia retains the territory it has seized so that a demilitarized zone could be established along the current battle lines. The demilitarized zone would need to be heavily fortified so the Russians don't invade again, Vance said at the time. Such a deal could also involve the provision that Ukraine doesn't join NATO to guarantee neutrality with Russia. Zelensky said this would be an awful idea if a person were actually going to carry it out, but there's certainly no way that this could ever happen, and it wouldn't necessarily end the war either. It's just sloganeering. Zelensky went on to say that Vance's ideas are dangerous signals, and accepting such a deal would risk other American interests abroad, such as in the Middle East and Taiwan. He further went on to hint that Vance, if elected, should be held responsible for potentially starting a global war if his ideas are put into practice. Zelensky told The New Yorker, whichever president or vice president raises this prospect, that ending the war hinges on cementing the status quo, with Ukraine simply giving up its land, should be held responsible for potentially starting a global war. I don't take Vance's words seriously because if this was a plan, then America is headed for global conflict. If it will involve Israel, or it will rather involve Israel, Lebanon, Iran, Taiwan, China, as well as many other African countries. Now, of course, the problem with this assertion is that Trump has already been president and the opposite occurred because of Trump's deliberate interactions with world leaders. Instead of war breaking out everywhere, areas of the country in which there were wars going on or there were potential wars, Trump put an end to it. You know, we continue to listen to some of these people that portray this storyline that is the opposite of what has actually happened. Everything they claim will happen if Trump is president. We have the benefit, if we choose to use our brains, to look at, this was a benefit to us. Look at history. Trump has been president. Did those things happen? No, the opposite happened. Now, what also is part of history is the fact that before Trump got elected, they made these same claims. I mean, this is all a repeat. And the only people who are able to buy into it are people who choose to ignore the reality of what has already happened, people who choose to ignore history. It's not even that long ago that it happened. Obviously, listen, I think that there is a legitimate argument to be made that if Putin is allowed to keep any land whatsoever, then in some capacity he has won. And I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that by allowing him to keep some land, that sends a message that if you are an evil player and you want to invade some other country, as you know, and you're able to gobble up some land, you just get as much as you can, and then once you're stopped and you can't fight any longer, you may be allowed to keep that land. So it's worth it. I understand that there is a potential recognition of that. I think intelligent people can argue that. But you also at the same time have to argue, okay, but what's the goal here? Is it worth it? How many lives? 1 million? I think we're past that point. 1 million people killed? Is it 2 million? Is it 10 million? See, these are the things that need to be defined. How many lives are worth sacrificing in order to get all that land back? And then we can decide whether or not we want to back that. For Zelensky, is it 10% of his population? Is it 1%? Is it 50%? It is unfair to expect the United States to continue to fund something that has no definable end in sight. What does the end look like? What does winning look like? There's all this discussion about Donald Trump ending things and what that could potentially look like, and Zelensky criticizing J.D. Vance's assertion of what it could look like. And listen, I understand that position. But what does victory look like to Zelensky? And if that victory is Ukraine gets all of their land back, does that include the Crimean Peninsula, the land that Putin took during the Obama years? I mean, we need to know that. And if that's the case, we also need to know, what is there a number of lives that are worth sacrificing for that? Is there, is it half the population? What is that? Because otherwise, this is how you end up in endless wars or funding endless wars, because there is no defined ending. Or there's a defined ending, but not a definition of, well, we will work towards that end until we hit this point. And I understand to some degree you may not want to tip your hand to the opposition and give them a sense or an idea of what the finish line is for you, or at what point you'll say this isn't worth it. But we don't get anything. And the only person, Donald Trump, who actually talks about, okay, for something to end, you have to know what that looks like. You have to say, here is what we'll do, here's what we'll do, and then we'll work towards that. He's the one person that gets dismissed. So the alternative to Trump's plan is there is no plan. It is just continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. And then is there some magical moment that is it like being in love when they say, well, you'll just know when it happens? We have to start requiring these things. Otherwise, you end up with no end whatsoever. Springfield's Talk 104.1, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have patchy fog in the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 74.
I got to focusing on this sort of fantasy world of Ukraine in which there's no definable end by those who claim that they are the biggest supporters of Ukraine. They say, well, we've got to win. Well, what the hell does that look like? Well, it's when Putin's completely gone. Okay, so does that mean that you will fight for that until there's literally not a single Ukrainian left? Because every day that goes by, more and more people are killed. There needs to be some defining, but they seem to have the luxury of not having to define any of this. It's just a bunch of patriotism for Ukraine, and if you don't support it, then you are a bad person who supports Russia. And they just get to continue to day after day after day acknowledge the loss of life without ever having any finish line that is observed. But the larger point here is this just absolutely absurd presentation of flying Zelensky here. This is campaigning, and this is targeting Pennsylvania specifically. Pennsylvania is a state that the Kamala Harris campaign recognizes that it's not impossible for her to win the election without Pennsylvania, but they certainly would like to have Pennsylvania. It makes it a lot easier if she does win Pennsylvania. And this is, maybe some of those people who are on the edge, and Trump, when it comes to polling, has an edge on the economy. But Zelensky's there telling those people that you have these jobs because of the Biden-Harris administration purchasing all of these munitions for the war. So he's there touting the job creation plan that is a result of what it is that is going on in Ukraine, and making sure they understand if Trump gets elected president and he brings this war to an end, that you all aren't going to be making this stuff anymore. So this is 100% targeting specifically Pennsylvania to try to win that state for Kamala Harris. Now, many of you are asking the obvious question, how the hell can this happen? Well, because they're Democrats. You think about how it is that just a few weeks ago, they once again announced, I think they've done this before, we're indicting some random Russian people because they created a Facebook page that had, and then they bought $100 worth of advertising, and that sort of election interference we cannot have in this country. We will never allow people from foreign countries outside of our borders to interfere in our elections. Meanwhile, this administration is forcing you and I, as taxpayers, to fly Zelensky over to the swing state of Pennsylvania in order to tout the jobs plan of the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, it's insane. Can you think of any greater election interference by a foreign country than that? It's the fact that this can even happen is insanely crazy. And it also shows how absolutely depraved, dishonest, and immoral the Democrat Party and the media is. I want to play some audio here coming up. This is fantastic audio. You know how it is that you just really trap a Kamala Harris surrogate? You just ask a specific question. I mean, that's all you have to do. And Kelly Hyman, who is a Florida attorney and Democratic strategist, was on Fox News' Your World with Neil Cavuto. And filling in for Neil Cavuto is Sandra Smith. And all she asks is, okay, so what's the plan for lowering prices? It's weird because whenever you ask specific questions, people turn into Kamala Harris. They become producers of word salads. That audio next. I'm Nick Reed. Remember in Gremlins, you throw water on them, make them multiply, feed them after midnight. They turned into from the cute, cuddly little gizmo to those evil gremlins. If you want to turn a Kamala Harris surrogate into Kamala Harris, a.k.a. producer of word salads, just ask specific questions. Fox News' Sandra Smith is interviewing a Democratic strategist and Florida attorney, Kelly Hyman, who is on Your World with Neil Cavuto. And all she does is ask the simple question about Kamala Harris's plan to bring down prices. And this is how it goes.
Consumers, but it also affects small businesses. They're going to have those costs as well. That's going to trickle down.
It seems like you're working off of Okay. What is Harris's plan? We're waiting.
Okay. There's a lot of aspects to it in regards to looking at it online. So let's talk about lowering the grocery costs, because that's something that's brought up. The viewers can look at this online. She talks about certain things in regards to advancing the first federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries, to set clear rules to the road to make it clear that big corporations can't unfairly exploit consumers as well.
Is that happening? Is that happening?
It's not at this moment. No, this is her plan that's laid out for the first 100 days when she becomes president of the United States of America.
Is that currently happening?
In regards to I don't know exactly if that's currently happening or not, because I'm not privy to that type of information. Okay. But there are people are costing a lot of money in regards to groceries.
Okay.
People are costing a lot of stuff, the groceries. She turned into Kamala Harris. I'm not privy to that information. Isn't the entire premise of her so-called plan to lower prices is based off this idea that there's price gouging going on, and that's what she's going to fix? Here, one of her own surrogates. Is that even happening? Well, I'm not really privy to that. What the hell are you talking about, privy to that information? I thought that's the whole point here. So much of it is, man, you just have to be really stupid to believe this stuff. So prices have gone up everywhere, right? This idea that let's just pretend that there was price gouging going on. If price gouging was responsible for price increases, that means everyone's price gouging, because everyone's prices went up. You can't claim in this environment that, well, some are price gouging, but others aren't, because then that would suggest that some would have much, much higher prices than others, and everyone's prices went up. So that means either everyone is price gouging or everyone wasn't. You can't have some and not the other when everyone's prices went up. If you had, let's say, one grocery chain that saw a doubling in prices while no one else's did, then you could go, well, that's kind of unusual. Something is happening there that isn't happening elsewhere. Let's see what's going on. The problem with this idiotic approach, which is built upon the idea that ignorant people are going to believe anything they say, is that everyone's prices went up everywhere. No one escaped this. Is there price gouging going on? Well, I'm not really privy to that information. Well, the simple answer should be yes, because that's what the entire economic policy is based on. Jiminy Christmas. God help us all. Listen, if she gets elected president, we deserve what we're going to get. We deserve it collectively. You may not as an individual, but the crash and burn that we've seen happen in Venezuela when the people of Venezuela bought into this same crap, and they went from the leading economic country in South America to bottom of the barrel. I mean, they went through the exact same thing. And many of those people, they've tried to warn us. Do not make the same mistake we did. And there are people lining up to do it. We will deserve it. All these young people, Kamala Harris, she's really expanding those lead with young people. I hope you're prepared to never, ever be able to financially own your own home, because that is the country that's coming. I hope you are prepared to be totally and completely reliant on having the government supplement your income in order to even eat. And then convince yourself that that's compassion, instead of being self-sufficient and not slaves to the government, not completely and totally reliant on what's the government going to give me because I can't make ends meet. Because that is exactly what we're going to get. And all you have to do is listen to these people. It's price gouging, it's price gouging, it's price gouging. Oh, is it? Well, I don't really know if it is. What a brilliant economic position that this campaign is taking.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have patchy fog in the morning and then mostly cloudy with a high near 73. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 53. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 76. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 72.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. One of you noted, and she brings up to Sandra Smith that she's insulted as a woman from the questioning. I'll continue playing that part of the audio. I stopped it. There's a Democrat strategist surrogate for Kamala Harris on with Sandra Smith on Fox News, and Sandra Smith just asked, "What's the plan here?" Economically speaking. And so she begins, the Kamala surrogate begins going into, it's just, really the very first federal law that's setting standards for price gouging. We're going to stop this price gouging. So this is what we're told. This is because of price gouging. And this is a handoff from the Biden administration. This is something Biden has been saying, and this is what Biden was campaigning on. Now Kamala's campaigning on. So the very simple question is, was that happening? And the response was, well, I don't really know. I don't have access to that information. Access to that information? That is the reason for their plan. That's the justification for their plan. That's what they claim is the problem. The back and forth continues.
It seems
that
like you're
potentially
having
is
a
my-
hard time articulating her plan. And
I'm
perhaps
not.
that's
I'm
the
just, honestly,
frustration of
that's
voters.
not true. Please, I'm constantly being interrupted by you, which, as a woman, I think is disrespectful. When I'm trying to speak, every time I try and speak, you
giving you a lot of
speak
time.
over me.
I'm just a woman.
Okay, final thought.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I was giving you time there. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining us.
All right.
Get out of here with your nonsense.
As the woman, I can't handle being challenged. I'm just really triggered by this. My gosh. I was just watching the world crash and burn around. Just watching the world. Watching people light the matches and pour the gasoline. These people are idiots. I mean, what is this? This has to tell you something. When your own people are out there, not only can they not explain your plan, but they can't even acknowledge that what you claim is the problem of the economy even exists. There's a new poll that comes out. So I had the poll earlier in which 400 and some deep state Dick Cheney types are endorsing Kamala Harris. Some of which were the same people that signed on to that letter that was the disinformation campaign, interfering in the last election, falsely claiming that Hunter's laptop didn't exist, that was Russian disinformation. These are the people that are in Kamala Harris's corner. The Dick Cheneys that the Democrats used to hate. And now Kamala Harris says she is honored. Not, hey, we disagree on a lot, but I'll take what I can get. Or anytime anyone wants to vote for me, I'm all for that. Honored. So it was yesterday's endorsement announcement for Kamala. Yesterday's endorsement announcement for Donald Trump is that Teamsters in every single state, the actual workers, support Donald Trump. When you do a state-by-state breakdown. Some of the more focused on states in terms of the presidential election, Michigan, blue-collar workers, Teamsters, union members, 61.7% support Trump, only 32.5% Kamala Harris. In Wisconsin, 57% to 40.5%. In Pennsylvania, 65.3% to 31.4%. In Georgia, 56.3% to 40.7%. In Arizona, 57.3% to 38.7%. Every single state. So Kamala Harris keeps traipsing out the Taylor Swifts, the Oprah Winfreys, the Dick Cheneys, these deep state individuals that love endless wars as being in her corner. Meanwhile, the blue-collar workers, Teamsters no less, in every single state that the Teamsters polled their actual members, Donald Trump overwhelmingly. Double digits. By the way, Missouri, though not considered necessarily a toss-up state, Trump 66% of Teamster members, Harris 32%. So a greater spread than the national average, which is 60 to 34. I mean, I know that there are some of you that are, Democrat workers or, workers, union workers, and you support the, Democrats, and you just have yourself convinced that Trump is awful and evil and horrible. But at some point, do you not just look around and see what is happening? Do you not see the endorsements that Kamala Harris is embracing? The people that she is coveting, the people that she says she is honored to have on her side? Are these the people 10 years ago? If you had been told 10, 20 years ago that you would be fully supporting the candidate that is supported by the Dick Cheneys of the world, that is supported by the former CIA folks of the world, that all of these entrenched establishment people, and that you're against the guy that 2/3 of your fellow union members support, what does that tell you? Do you think maybe you can just let go of your hatred for a moment? There is no mammal on the planet that has amongst its species such a significant portion of self-destructive mammals. I mean, self-preservation is key number one. But man, when it comes to human beings, the willingness to deny reality because of emotion, it is a remarkable thing. And when it comes to the hierarchy of survival, it seems to be the one real massive chink in the armor of humans versus animals. I mean, we've got thumbs. We have a brain capacity that should make us even greater at self-preservation and picking intelligent leadership when we have two choices, though one, neither may be perfect. But animals have no trouble. I had this discussion with a listener over the weekend. We were out at the Honda the Ozarks 12th anniversary thing, and a listener had come up and noted that, animals, they pick leaders based off just watching, observing, and, not personality, not what some leader of this little animal pack tells me to do, but just observation. Which one is more successful in survival? Okay, clearly this is the one. They don't even have to vote. They just know. Not humans. Not some of us, anyhow. This will come as a shock, and I think probably a lot of people who hate Trump will refuse to even acknowledge this. There are a lot of us, and I'm one of them. Now, there are things I like about Trump. I like Trump because I think he loves the country. I think he genuinely cares about people. That's not why I'm voting for him. I'm not voting for him because, I just think he's the most amazing thing in the world. I'm voting for him because of the two candidates, he is the one who demonstrates that he does the things that work, that make things better. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's like a blind taste test for me when it comes to these two. Like, is it Coke, is it Pepsi, or which one do you like better? We don't even show you the labels. Put on a blindfold, taste. That's all. And why it is that so many human beings just refuse to choose based off of that is beyond me. I guess it makes life more interesting. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. I wanted to read a review that a listener sent in yesterday on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. And I apologize, I don't have your name, but they wrote, I am an avid listener and I've recently had roofing issues with our rental property. I met with Josh from the Pyramid Roofing Company and he not only repaired the initial issue while he was there gathering information, but he also gave me the peace of mind that everything would be handled professionally. That's what you get with the Pyramid Roofing Company. Whenever they come out to your home, they are going to be honest with you. They get that your home is probably the largest investment that you will make, so they really do want to help you protect it the best that you can. So whether you need a whole new roof or maybe you need just a simple roof repair or even gutter repairs, the Pyramid Roofing Company is the company to call. Now, if it is time to have Josh out at your home, go go ahead and give them a call today. Now, you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Now, so many of you, you're intellectually curious. You just want answers. You want to figure things out. You want to work through them. And when it comes to the president, I think many of you, you do want somebody that does care about the country and puts the country first. When they run to be president of the United States, you want them to be running to be president of the United States, not other countries like Ukraine and Mexico and so forth. You want us to be the number one priority. But at the same time, what is important is what works. What works when you hire somebody, when you hire a roofing company, Pyramid Roofing Company. It's because what they do a good job. They have good results, and that's why you go with them. And so it's very frustrating for us when we try to sift through all of this and figure out what the truth is and have conversations about, what works, what doesn't work. And then we watch how what resonates with other people. This is one of the latest ads. This is not a joke. One of the latest ads for the Kamala Harris campaign.
I'm Fran Dresser, and I approve this message. You know nothing. When we go out,
So obviously it's a take off the TV sitcom The Nanny. They really are catering towards the lowest common denominator. And it's so frustrating that while the rest of us are trying to use our brains and looking at what's important, what's significant, this is the stuff they're coming out with. Here's another one, and it's a cartoon, and it's playing off The Odd Couple.
Dick, we never got along. Correct. You were a warmonger. And you were a commie. Surprising to be on the same side as you. Surprising to me, too. I'm still on the left. I'm still on the right. But if we can agree on Trump, it means something big. Bigger than policy. Bigger than ideology. We are both voting for Kamala Harris. Because this election is a choice between America or Trump.
That one's put out by the Lincoln Project, which is, a bunch of establishment people, many of which were part of the Republican Party. Now, I think that they don't understand how a lot of this stuff comes across. And this, to me, is actually helpful to Trump, not only because it demonstrates their target audience as being the lowest common denominator in terms of intellect, but they keep touting how establishment they are. And this stuff like, we got these Republicans. Look at the Republicans you have. Never has there been a presidential election that was so far outside in our lifetimes, Republican versus Democrat. The labels are there. But that is not what this race is about. And the fact that they keep touting having people like Dick Cheney and other establishment Republicans on their side, that tells us what we need to know. Sarah brought up a good question, or she made an observation. So it's two latest spots for Kamala Harris. One is a playoff of The Nanny, the other Odd Couple. She had to look them up. She goes, I don't even know, because The Nanny, I think that was in the 90s. The Nanny,
1993. I wasn't born yet.
I found it to be, it wasn't a show I cared for. The Odd Couple was well before my time.
1970.
But this also, I think it demonstrates what is occurring here is you have people that recognize they have to try to, hit the younger people, and they're trying to, but they don't know quite how to do it. So they're doing it in the best way possible. And so, Fran Drescher opened up the Nanny, and then the Odd Couple. And so they're using cartoons and songs, like it's Saturday morning cartoons or something, in order to try to win over those voters. But in utilizing what information they know, shows like The Nanny and the Odd Couple, and I've said this before. They, for the longest time, when they're trying to reach young voters, seem to me like the middle school vice principal opening up the talent show and trying to use verbiage like Riz and everything else that is sort of cringy to young people because it's clear what they're trying to do. That's how it comes across to me. Biden is set to address the United Nations today. Good Lord. Can we stop this? Stop this already. He will be addressing the United Nations General Assembly for the last time. Of course, the United Nations does nothing better than normalize and give dictators a seat at the table. So, people like the leader of Iran, that country that's been launching terrorist attacks, trying to kill as many Jews as possible. They're given a seat at the table. This is what the United Nations does. It legitimizes the worst players in the world. And, of course, we're going to have the full world seen on full display Joe Biden once again. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.